agenda is approved. We have two groups of reports tonight to review. The first one is the Chamber of Commerce report. And that memo and report, two-sided, it was included in our packet, is very complete. And I was informed this morning that the Chamber will not be on the call with this, so it will be part of our written record, and we will move on to the monthly city department reports. I'd like to try something a little new in our format. Because we have some very weighty items and a pretty intense meeting in front of us, I'm going to poll each council member, and I'll ask you if you have any questions of any of the department heads. So it would be all inclusive. All department heads would be considered, and their department reports. By each council member. We'll do this one at a time and see if we can gain a little efficiency there. I'm going to start with Melanie. Do you have any questions of any department head?
No, sir, but thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Next, going to go to Mike. Councilmember Mike, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions, and Bob, that's a great idea, and thanks for initiating that, and appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bessie Jo suggested that to me, and we always are reviewing our process, and so she gets the credit, but I think it is a good process. Thanks for that feedback. Next up will be Cammie.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Cammie. Colby?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Colby. And I'm good. I reviewed all the reports this afternoon. I had a couple of quiet hours, and Annette, please tell the staff we really appreciate a good, thorough written report. It's helpful to us.
Yes, I will. And they are on the line tonight, so they can hear your thanks and appreciation directly as well.
Good, thank you. All right, we're going to go to the general public comment. And because of the guidelines of health and safety with COVID-19, we're using a process where we submit, citizens submit written comments. They were due today by 3 p.m. These are the general public comment section. Were there any written comments received, Bessie Jo?
Yes, there was one. And it was from David Simmons of Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. And he writes regarding Agenda Bill 21-012, request for decision on whether to reopen the public hearing for variance 20-01. The Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council requests that the City Council reopen the public hearing and direct staff to draft findings of facts and conclusions of law documents in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Bessie Jo. That concludes the general public comment section. We will move into our first public hearing. It's Agenda Bill 21-011, request to approve CA-20-03 zoning code amendments to Title III and Title IX related to general development standards. This is an action item. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider approval of CA-20-03 zoning code amendments to Title III and Title IX related to general development standards. I hereby continue the public hearing, so the hearing is now open. I believe that Michelle, Morgan, and Diane will provide comments on this application and help guide us through the discussion.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Michelle Grunewald, Community and Economic Development Director.
So as you mentioned, this is the code amendment that we presented previously, and it was continued to this evening. Since the time we presented it to the council, we did bring it to the Valley County Board of Commissioners. And we had recommended to them to go ahead and take out the gas station scenic route provision based on the council's previous conversation, because we thought it was most appropriate to remand that back to planning and zoning for some more discussion and public input. So this evening in front of you, what you have is essentially the same with that one change from the last time it was presented, which is eliminating the scenic route gas station provision, which was discussed. As you mentioned, we do have Diane Cushlin, who's on the phone. This evening, we didn't think we'd go back through and re-present everything unless the council is interested in that. But we are happy to answer any questions, and our city planner, Morgan Besaw, is also available to answer any questions.
Thank you with that overview, Michelle. So council, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and then I'll come back to follow the written process in my script. We're right now on step 4. The council may ask any questions of city staff or the consultant. But before we do that, let me give you a glimpse of where a possible way where we're headed. We're going to hear from all of you about your questions. We're going to hear any written comments will be read into the record, and staff rebuttal, there'll be time for that. And then I will close the hearing. One possible scenario is that we would make a motion to remand back to planning and zoning the language specifically about service stations within the scenic corridor, and let the Planning and Zoning Commission work on that. As Michelle said, it has been removed, and the current version before us does not have any language on that. So that's one possibility that would require a motion and a roll call vote. And then if that happened, another possibility would be to suspend the rules and read by title only, one time only, ordinance number 998, which is the ordinance in the packet that Michelle referred to that does not have any language about service stations in the scenic corridor. And then if that happened, we would make a motion to adopt an ordinance and vote on that. So those are the 3 possible things that could happen tonight that, well, I'm envisioning they probably would happen as action items, and then we would vote on that. So that's where we're headed, big picture. Let's go back to the script, and I'm going to ask council, I'm going to ask all of you together, do any of you have any questions at this point about where we are in the process, or any questions of Michelle or Morgan or of Diane? So I'll open it up to the floor.
Bob, it's Mike. I do not have any questions. I think this has been well vetted and discussed and adjusted, and I'm in favor of moving towards the recommended action.
Thank you, Mike. Hearing no other input on that, let me move on. Written correspondence. Do we have any new written correspondence, Bessie Jo or Morgan?
I did receive some written correspondence from David Simmons, but he also requested to be on the meeting. And I did send him an invite, and he accepted it, but I do not see him on. Let me see if I can call him.
And it was on this item?
Yes, it was on this item. So there's people have the ability to sign up and sign up for to give live comments, and he signed up, and I sent him an invite of which he accepted. But I do not see him on. So let
Bessie
me.
Jill, I had one letter. Would you like me to read that into the comments while you look for the other one?
That would be great.
So this is Morgan Besaw. We have a letter from Mr. Bob Yude, and he said that there is support for intelligent growth planning for Mccall, that he supports the 10,000 square foot. Sorry, I couldn't see it all on my screen. He supports the limit to structures being 10,000 square feet. You are right on stopping developer-driven irresponsible proposals to get commercial industrial zoning and use exemptions in the impact area. The comprehensive plan very clearly has very clear policies on maintaining residential zoning and uses and protecting the basic tenets of the scenic corridor. You are right on working housing needs and programs. You are right on being open to banning gas stations and truck stops in town and in the impact area. You are right on the swap of the 3rd Street for the bypass. You are right on arts acquisitions, installments, improvements in the city and infrastructure planning. And you are right on creating and expanding more urban development planning districts along the 3rd Street. Great work. Hang in there, Bob.
That was from Mr. Bob Yude, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you for reading that into the record, Morgan. This is Mayor Bob. We're trying to reach David Simmons, is that correct?
Yes.
David, are you online with us either by telephone or on Teams?
I am on now. Can you hear me?
Good.
Thank you. I would love to hear your comments. We're on Agenda Bill 21-011, which are zoning code amendments.
Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is David Simmons. I'm the president of the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council, and I'm a Mccall resident. And first, I would like to refer you to our written comments, which you should have, and I'll just summarize those the best I can. The Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council is pleased to support the proposed amendments to Title III with regard to shoreline environs, vegetation, and stormwater. Historically, this brings us full circle in the present but aging lake management planning process that we're under at this time. If I recall correctly, the creation of the shoreline and river environs zone originated from the city's participation in the first Water Quality Council's lake management planning process that occurred during the 90s. I was a participant along with city staff in that process, and I saw that the city was understandably eager to take an active role in protecting the lake. The 1997 Payette Lake Management Plan wasn't regulatory, but it relied on local and state regulation and best management practices to manage and limit the eutrophication potential, which is the degradation of water quality in Payette Lake. And this is where a better Title III comes in. The strong city code continues to be key to the plan's intent to protect and sustain Payette Lake. The sustainability of the lake should be an easy goal for all of us to rally around. Increased pressures of development and our evolving knowledge of what works to protect water quality are the correct drivers of adaptation and improvement of local regulations such as these that are before you tonight. Specifically, the proposed change to section 3.7.02 C3 provides for a more meaningful and effective implementation of a 50-foot setback to protect water quality and the integrity of the shoreline. The shorelines have been in place for thousands of years. They were left that way by the glaciers, and we have a hard time improving on that. They are pretty well armored if we don't set out to destroy them. Hardscaping, including patios and walls within 50 feet of the lake, present a risk to the shoreline from accelerated runoff. And they also involve removal of existing vegetation. So that prohibition seems warranted. You know, property rights do have limits when impacts extend beyond private property, particularly where an overarching public good is at stake. So this is a reasonable change, but we request that the city and the county, for that matter, continue to evaluate whether an even larger setback, as is the case with other Idaho lakes, such as Priest Lake, which has a 60-foot buffer, or in Washington State, where lakes have a 200-foot buffer, may be warranted in future planning reviews. A strict 50-foot buffer isn't excessive. It's the least we can do. The addition of provisions in 3.8.02 to retain tree cover is a positive change for mitigating thermal pollution of runoff into the lake and maintaining a healthy cold water biota, which is one of the legal beneficial uses of the waters of Payette Lake. Tree canopies can also lessen surface erosion from precipitation and improve snowmelt patterns to decrease upland pollution runoff into the lake. State and federal BMPs already reflect the importance of shading in stream buffer zones for similar reasons. And Payette Lake is showing some stress that may be related to increased temperatures from all causes over longer periods of the year. The provisions of 3.8.13C for preservation and use of natural vegetation and native species appear to benefit water quality generally, and particularly in lakeshore and near lakeshore development, where stormwater impacts may have the greatest effect on the public good. And I would add to that retaining natural vegetation in an undisturbed fashion along the lakeshore is particularly important. It has taken a long time to establish itself and give us a free buffer along the lake, and the least we can do is take advantage of that. We have noted that many development projects around the lake have developed right down to the water line despite our existing zoning code, and include, in some cases, people hauling large quantities of boulders down and depositing them even below the high water mark to create jetties out into the water with, I presume, the intent of preserving their beach from erosion. So that is preserving natural vegetation and preserving the natural lakeshore is an important goal. And this new zoning code provision does that.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes, sir.
This is Mayor Bob. We generally during a public hearing, and I did not issue any instructions tonight, but we generally try to limit our comments to 3 minutes. Would you take a minute just to summarize your final points then?
Sure, and I'm pretty close to that as it is. So this process is a good opportunity to note that many of us, agencies, residents, and other observers, see disturbing new signs of impacts to Payette Lake. And that includes evidence of algae blooms, cyanobacteria, and so forth. So the city's timing on this is good. I noted that Roy Aguirre presented legislation to you last week, and this effort and the countywide lake planning effort should all work together to help protect Payette Lake. Thank you.
Mr. Simmons, thank you very much for your comments tonight. Bessie Jo, we do have the written letter in our record, is that correct?
That is correct, and it has been emailed to all of the council as well, but it will be attached to the minutes as well.
Thank you. I don't believe, because the comments that we heard tonight, both written and verbal, are in support, I don't believe we need any rebuttal from our staff. I believe it's appropriate for me to propose to close the public hearing at this point. Council, are you in agreement with that?
Yes, this is Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yes, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Sounds good to me, Colby.
Thanks, Colby. Cammie, you good with this?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right, based on your input, I hereby close the public hearing. No more public testimony will be allowed on this agenda bill. So our next step is to deliberate, and listening to all of you tonight, sounds like we are ready to take action on the 3 steps. The first action item is, on each of these will require a motion, second, and a roll call vote. First item is to remand back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review the language regarding prohibition of service stations. May I have a motion for that?
So moved.
I'll second
Thank you,
that.
Cole. Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Cammie.
Thank you, Cammie. Thank you, Colby. A motion has been made and seconded to remand back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review the language regarding prohibition of service stations. May I have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Nielsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Callan,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Councilmember Machesik,
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That motion carries. As Michelle said earlier this evening, the version of the code amendment is already has that language removed. So that's something that we will revisit after Planning and Zoning provides us more feedback and input. Second item is to suspend the rules, read by title only, one time only, ordinance number 998. May I have a motion to do that?
This is Cammie. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only, one time only, ordinance 998.
Thank you, Cammie.
Mike, second.
Thank you, Mike. A motion has been made and seconded to suspend the rules, read by title only, one time only, ordinance number 998. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Callan,
Yes.
Councilmember Machesik,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Councilmember Nielsen,
Yes.
Motion carries, and we will ask City Clerk Bessie Jo Wagner to read by title only.
an ordinance of the City of Mccall, Valley County, Idaho, amending Title III, Chapter 2, definitions to provide definitions for amended and new terms, amending Title III, Chapter 3, residential zones and standards, clarifying general development standards, providing for residential zone design review standards, amending Title III, Chapter 4, commercial zones and standards, setting purpose, applicability for commercial zone design review standards. Excuse me. Title III, Chapter 7, special districts, providing provisions for design review to include assessments, clarifying setbacks, simplifying and updating scenic route zone provisions, amending Title III, Chapter 16, design review, simplifying language for purpose and applicability, clarifying procedures, requirements, and design approval, setting regulations for visual and water quality to enhance scenic quality, Amending Title III, Chapter 8, General Development Standards, clarifying purposes from the comprehensive plan, revising tree removal to maintain and preserve Mccall's urban forest, providing purpose for fire hazard mitigation standards, clarifying the applicability, establishing considerations for fire hazard assessments and requirements within areas of fire hazard, providing purpose and standards to parking and internal circulation development, revising landscaping and screening provisions, adding new parking access and driveway surface standards and purpose, providing clarity and purpose for loading areas and fencing and walls, providing standards for fencing and walls, adding new landscape standards, including standards for water efficiency practices and limitations, requirements to snow storage locations, establishing purpose and standards to site design to minimize modification of natural drainage systems and land, providing standards to ridgetop development to protect skylines and views, establishing undergrounding utilities, establishing purpose and standards for design, location, and screening of service areas, including fencing, landscaping, enclosures, snow accumulation, providing standards for noise mitigation, amending Title III, Chapter 5 to remove surfacing in regard to industrial development standards, amending Title III, Chapter 15, Procedures, Appeals, and Action to clarify appeal requirements, amending Title IX, Chapter 6, Subdivision and Development Improvement Requirements, providing exceptions to driveway designs to provide safety and traffic provisions, directing the city clerk and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Bessie Jo. So our third item is to adopt ordinance number 998, updating Mccall City Code Titles 3 and 9, codifying the Mccall design guidelines, approve the publication of the summary, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
This is Cammie, I'll second.
Thank you, Cammie. A motion has been made and seconded to adopt ordinance number 998, updating the Mccall City Code Titles 3 and 9, codifying the Mccall design guidelines, approve the publication of the summary, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Machesik,
Yes.
Councilmember Callan,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Councilmember Nielsen.
Yes.
Thank you, council. That motion carries. Ordinance number 998 has been adopted. We will now move into our business agenda. First item is Agenda Bill 21-012, request for decision on whether to reopen the public hearing for VAR, the variance 20-01, variance application for 221 Morgan Drive, and/or direct staff to draft findings of facts and conclusions of law documents. This is an action item, and our legal counsel, Bill Nichols, will help guide us and facilitate this next section.
Good evening, council. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Bill.
So, Mayor and council, after the last hearing on this particular variance application, and after the public hearing was closed, we received a request from the applicant that they be allowed to address some items that came into the record after the public hearing was closed. So I asked Mr. Milliman if he could specify exactly what items that he wanted to address. And so he responded with an email, and I don't know if you have that email. It wasn't part of the packet, at least not the one that I downloaded. But there are essentially three things. that he's asked to address in a reopened public hearing. So let me read those to you. The first is the assertion that through appropriate due diligence, the Sanders should have been aware of the limited buildable area and that a variance would be required to proceed outside of that area. The testimony and comments which the applicants will present on that issue would include the testimony of Dwayne Sanders regarding his due diligence process and understanding at the time of the purchase of the lot, the testimony of Steve Richards, a member of the Rivers Crossing Design Review Committee and a licensed professional engineer, testimony from Jim Frank as to his engagement and actions during the due diligence process, and some comments from Mr. Milliman. The second item that they've asked to address is the assertion that granting the variance would set a precedent for other similar applications. The point there is they feel it's important that the facts bearing on the assertion be clearly presented, and the applicant's rebuttal on the issue would consist of the testimony of Jim Frank, potentially aided by an illustrative exhibit and comments by Mr. Milliman. The third item is the assertion that denial of the variance application is necessary to protect the river. The applicant's rebuttal on this issue would consist of the testimony of Steve Richards, the testimony of Jim Frank, and some comments from Mr. Milliman. The applicant does not anticipate that the above referenced testimony would be lengthy. They wouldn't expect it to take more than an additional 30 minutes of presentation. So I reviewed with staff the request, the initial request for reopening the public hearing. Again, we asked Mr. Milliman to indicate the specific issues that would be addressed in a reopened public hearing so we could limit the reopened public hearing to just those issues. And that's what we got back from Mr. Milliman, was his email that outlined those things. My recommendation to you is that we go ahead and reopen the public hearing, that it be re-noticed. So all the appropriate notices that go along with any kind of public hearing would have to be done for this one, but that the hearing, the reopened public hearing, would be limited to those three issues that I read to you that were contained in Mr. Milliman's email. And that way, it's not just open to everything in the variance application, it's just those specific issues. But that way the facts can be supplemented. The applicant has an opportunity to present their case, and then the council will have that additional information upon which to base its decision. So it's our recommendation, and staff's as well, that public hearing be reopened for those limited items.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you providing us a concise recommendation. So in my script tonight, one option for us to take action on would be, I'll read the words to you, reopen the public hearing for variance 20-01, variance application for 221 Morgan Drive on February 11th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard. In addition, we would add to that motion that it is only reopened to, it would be reopened and re-noticed to address three items that we have on record from the office of Steve Milliman. Limited buildable area, granting a variance would set precedent, and denial is necessary to protect the river. Those are the three topics, but they're more accurately portrayed in the letter and in Mr. Nichols' presentation tonight. So that's one option. Another option, and that's what staff and our legal counsel recommends. The other option for us tonight is we could direct staff to draft findings of facts and conclusions of law documents, either approving or denying the variance for review and approval tonight. So based on what we've heard, council, what is your preference? I'm going to start with Mike. Would you like to reopen the public hearing as we heard, and then we would make a decision in February?
I am, based upon Bill's recommendation and staff's recommendation, I would follow their recommendation.
Thank you, Mike. Melanie?
I agree.
Cammie?
Yes, I would agree with the recommendation.
Thanks, Cammie. And Colby?
Yeah, same here.
And I agree with Bill's recommendation on that. I think process is really important. So I would ask for a motion to reopen the public hearing for variance 20-01, variance application for 221 Morgan Drive on February 11th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard. The public hearing will be limited to the 3 items described in Mr. Milliman's letter to the city and that were presented tonight by Mr. Nichols. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Colby.
Second, this is Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Motion has been made and seconded to reopen the public hearing for VAR-20-01, variance application for 221 Morgan Drive on February 11th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as may be heard. The opening of this public hearing will be limited to 3 items that were described by the city's legal counsel, Bill Nichols, tonight during our meeting, and that are listed in detail in a letter written by the attorney representing the client in this issue, Mr. Milliman. Limited buildable area, granting a variance would set precedent, and denial is necessary to protect the river. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Nielsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Councilmember Callan,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Machezek,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff, and Bill Nichols for guiding us in this process. So most likely on February 11th, after we have reopened the hearing, listened to all the testimony and deliberated, we will be in a position then to make a decision to direct staff to draft findings of facts and conclusions of law documents, either approving or denying the variance at that point. And that would be February 11th is our best guess at when we will revisit that. We'll move on to our next agenda bill. This is a request, this is Agenda Bill 21-013, request for approval of a remote access policy agreement between the City of Mccall Police Department and Valley County for remote access. And it sounds like this is a software computer kind of remote access issue. It's an action item, and I believe Chris Curtin will be joining us and guiding us on this issue, this agenda bill.
Yes, good evening, council. I think Justin's online as well if there are any questions that are particular to the Mccall PD. This action item is just a policy agreement or an access agreement between the Mccall PD and Valley County. As you know, we use Valley County for our reporting services through the county system, as well as dispatch and things of that nature. This access agreement is required by Valley County so that they have assurances that our security is equivalent or better than theirs is. They have agreed to that, and the policy is acceptable to us as well as them. It has been reviewed by Bill Nichols as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions for Chris Curtin or for Chief Williams? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the remote access policy agreement, the recommended action that's in our agenda, on our agenda, Bill.
Bob,
Yeah,
this is Melanie. I'd like to make a motion to approve the remote access policy agreement between the City of McCall and Valley County for remote access and authorize the mayor to sign all documents.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there a second?
Yeah, this is Cammie. I'll second it.
Thank you, Cammie. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the remote access policy agreement between the City of McCall and Valley County for remote access and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Councilmember Cowan,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Machezik,
Yes.
Councilmember Nielsen,
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carries. So our remote access policy agreement will be formalized.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, staff. And Chris and Chief Williams, thank you very much for explaining that. Next item, our guest presenter will be Linda Stokes, City Treasurer. This is COVID-19 relief for utility customers. There will be discussion and then providing, the council will provide direction to staff. Linda, you have the floor. I'm wondering if, since we're a little ahead of schedule, that perhaps we should call Linda?
Well, I see her on and she's unmuted, but we are not hearing her. So I wonder if she's having some technical difficulties. Maybe we can just take a quick break and I'll see if I can get her.
Can you guys hear me now?
Is that Linda?
Yes.
Yep, we got thumbs up. We can hear you. I just
Okay.
gave a quick introduction, so go ahead and lead us through this topic.
All right, perfect. Apparently my headset was a problem. So taking that off, you can hear me now. All right, so in your packet, in the agenda, Bill, so the last time you met, we discussed COVID relief for our utility customers was on October the 8th, and you continued the COVID relief for another 90 days. So that 90 days expired January 9th, about a week or so ago, almost a week. And so our COVID relief that we've been providing is suspending billing for and/or waiving penalties and delinquent service charges. We suspended doing shut-off notification on delinquent accounts for non-payment. We have encouraged utility rate customers to pay what they can, and they've been doing that mostly. And then we've also reached out to a number of customers that their balances were getting quite large on the shut-off list to encourage them to make a payment if they can, and or to, if they felt they needed to enter into some kind of payment arrangement with the city. To date, nobody has entered into a payment arrangement. And when Bobette Steffler made phone calls to those customers that were on the shutoff list, a lot of them did make some payments. So that's where we are today. I think Bobette is planning to contact a number of customers again from the shutoff list, just to check in with them and see what they need to, you know, if they can pay anything or if they need to enter into payment arrangements again. I also included in your agenda, Bill, was a chart. I summarized the from April through the end of the fiscal year. We provided relief to in the amount of 4,000. Well, actually, total through December 31, the total amount of relief provided through writing off service charges and late penalties was $4,259. So that is revenue that the water fund will not see or has not seen in the last few months. So my question before you tonight is, do you wish to continue providing relief to our utility customers? Obviously, COVID is still amongst us, and we're still seeing the effects of the pandemic. And or the other flip side of that question is, do we want to end COVID relief, or do we want to do something different? And I really don't have a recommendation of anything different, but I was thinking maybe perhaps the council might have some thoughts. So just asking you to provide direction to me and my staff on how we want to continue since the relief that you had provided previously has expired.
Thank you, Linda. Colby, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on whether or not we need relief? And if so, if you believe we still need to extend this, I guess it's lapsed for a week, but we could reinstate it, I believe. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that, Colby?
Yeah, I think that we should probably extend it, you know, as Linda said, but the COVID is not behind us yet. And I think it's going to be a challenging winter. So I would look at extending it. I guess my one concern is, you know, providing an end in sight for folks who are on the shutoff list and that aren't entering into payment agreements. I think that, you know, that will be important to have in place, because we're going to have to end this at some point. So I don't know what sort of options we would have on that, you know, to continue to work with people and support people, but to also get them to take some action to getting their bills paid at some point in time.
Thank you. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I would follow with Colby's thoughts, being the same line of thinking.
Cammie, what do you think?
I personally think that it's great to extend it, but I think we should limit the extension to the people who are willing to make those payment arrangements and are in communication with the city and know that they have a balance due and are actively working towards finding a solution, even if it's a 6-month or 12-month solution, to pay their bill. At least there's some action being done towards it.
Good thought. Let's see. I have not asked Melanie. I would like to ask you your opinion on this issue.
So, Bob, I somewhat agree with Cammie, but I think now's the time for us to send something out and be clear that arrangements need to be made. I don't care if it's $5, but something has to happen in order for us to continue, so that, you know, when it stops, that we haven't left these people with this balance that they have no possibility of paying. I mean, they need to make arrangements now.
All right, I think those are good ideas that council shared. Linda, can you and Annette and Bobette help us? The recommended action is to provide direction to either continue or discontinue. Sounds like we're interested in continuing with some specific guidance on the payment arrangement area. It looks like in the past we've added on like an additional 90-day period. So could you help us put that together? It sounds like we're not supposed to make a decision on all the specifics tonight, the way the agenda bill's written, but have we provided you enough direction?
It is
I'm sorry.
considered an action item, sorry.
Hey, Bessie Joe just told me it is an action item. I'll need a little guidance on, am I to craft a specific language on this, or how are we going to do this? Or a motion? Because it says provide direction to staff to continue or discontinue.
If I may, Bob.
Bill,
Oh. I was just thinking that if you wanted to extend it for another 90 days and then direct staff to contact those folks, maybe we could contact those folks that have large balances or have not made payments in a while and encourage them to either make a payment, substantial payment, and or enter into a payment arrangement and notify them that, you know, just having a conversation in a letter or an email that states that COVID relief is not going to go on, you know, indefinitely, that at some point we need to work with them so that like Melanie said, that they're not left with a large balance that we're expecting them to pay and we're just going to shut their water off. I think there's some leeway that we could work with folks so that when it does end, we don't shut their water off if they can't pay it. That would be an impetus then for them to enter into a payment arrangement. But I was thinking we could reach out to them in the meantime and just give them some idea that, you know, it's time now that we need to start thinking about how we're going to get those balances down. Come up with a more clear message to that effect.
All right, let me take a shot at a motion then so we can document this.
Mayor,
go ahead.
This is Colby, I guess just before you do the motion, Linda, I know there's some resources and stuff out there for people with utilities. I mean, would it help to kind of the education aspect of it to see if we can assist some of those folks to find support for utility payments?
Yeah, we could identify those in our message to our customers that there's these resources out there. I personally, currently right now, I don't know what those are, but we could put together a list to help them. We do have a hardship, but it doesn't, the way the current hardship policy is written, it only allows a small amount off of their current utility billing rate. So I don't think it won't help too awful much in this instance.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't sure what all resources may be available, but if there are other resources out there for folks, it might help the cause.
Yeah, this is Cammie. Would it be possible to do a 30-day extension and then to let those people who are in the situation or that have used or not on a payment plan know that, you know, this is only going for another 30 days, and in order to stay on this, they need to have a payment plan of their balance?
Yeah, that's totally possible. In fact, that's what I was thinking. If and when this, you know, when we when the decision is made by the council to end the COVID relief, that was a process that I was wanting to use, was we would reach out to them and encourage them to get on some kind of a payment plan. So 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, whatever is the appropriate timeline.
I would guess, though, that 30 days, that time will go by really quick. And I really like the idea that, Linda, that you explained about how you and Bobette are trying to contact everyone. That I think that personal touch is really important and gets better results. So we might have to look at a time period like 60 days.
I
What's
know
your
that
thoughts, Linda? Can you really get through all of that with all the people in 30 days? Or is that pretty pie in the sky with all your other things going on with auditing and?
hold on just a second. So currently the shut off list, it increased a little bit in December, but we normally see an increase in December. I think people are choosing to spend their monies in other ways and during the holidays, but the list is 62 customers long. So yeah, it's totally doable to get through that in 30 days. That's depending, depends on if we can contact folks, but Bobette's pretty good at getting a hold of people and being able to, have that conversation with them. The last time she did it, she generated quite a few payments.
Thank you. Council, I'd like to poll each of you. Do you want 30 days, 60 days, or 90-day extension? Colby, your thoughts?
I'm kind of partial to 90 days. I feel like nothing's going to change in 30 days. And I have a feeling things aren't going to be better in 30 days. So I'd be partial to 90.
Mike?
90.
Melanie?
I'm good.
You're good with 90? This is Bob. I'm good with 90. So how about we go with that and see if someone would like to make a motion to continue COVID-19 relief for the utility ratepayer and for 90 days and ask city staff to contact each customer that is behind in their payments and work on payment arrangements, as Linda described.
So moved, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second, Colby.
Thank you, Colby. May I have a roll call vote, please? Oh, excuse me. A motion has been made and seconded to continue COVID-19 relief for the utility ratepayer with special emphasis on city staff contacting customers that need to make payment arrangements. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Machezik,
Yes.
Councilmember Nielsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Callan,
Yes.
Mayor Giles,
Yes.
Councilmember Holmes,
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The COVID-19 relief for utility customers has been extended. That motion carries. Thank you, Linda, for helping us with that. And we look forward to you and Bobette and others contacting people to help them transition and make some progress on that. Our next agenda bill is our Mccall procurement policy update. This is Agenda Bill 21-015. It's for the City of Mccall procurement. A very good packet put together on this and a good agenda bill summary. I was briefed on this by Annette a little bit this morning at my weekly mayor update. So it sounds like hasn't been updated since 1995. It's definitely timely, something that our risk manager, ICRIMP, and AIC are interested in having cities do to have consistency and a transparent purchasing policy in place. So let's see. Linda, I think you're the lead on this as well.
Yes, sir. Okay, so as you stated, our current policy was adopted in 1995, and it was a pretty straightforward, simple document that was 3 pages long. What's before you tonight is somewhat longer than that and is very in-depth and attempts, hopefully it meets the same goals of, you know, allowing us and laying out procedures to obtain goods and at the lowest price for the best quality. Helps us meet our budgetary goals and manage our cash, as well as to clearly meet the laws and guidelines as set forth by the federal government and the state of Idaho. This policy, I received several copies of policies from various cities, and I reached out to the city of Lewiston and received a copy of their policy and used that as the basis for creating this policy. Excuse me? Did someone say something?
No.
Okay, I thought I heard something. Okay, and they also have a city manager council form of government similar to ours. And so I thought it would be a good basis for crafting our extensive policy that you have before you tonight. The city attorney has reviewed the policy. They've spent some time making some suggestions and edits so that to help us make sure that we are meeting the guidelines and of procurement as set forth in state code. This is quite a lengthy document, so I'm not sure how you want to do this. I can walk you through the various sections, or we can take questions. I'm kind of open to how you want to do it. I don't want to just go ahead and just read it all to you, but
So Linda, my
yes.
thoughts were this is really well written, and looking at the agenda, Bill, and the briefing that I got this morning, this is our first touch. So the goal tonight is to have a thorough discussion. And then for city council to provide direction to staff to prepare a resolution for adoption of this policy of the city of Mccall procurement policy at a future meeting. And of course, that includes delegation of signature authority for certain purchases and contracts to the city manager. As an example, I think the dollar limit is around 50,000. So that's where we're headed, and this is our first touch. So what I would suggest is that I'll poll the council one by one and ask if they have any questions on the draft procurement policy update, the little booklet, I'll call it, that you have provided to all of us. Let me start with Melanie. Do you have any questions for Linda? Any direction?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll go to Mike. Your thoughts?
I don't have any questions. All looks good to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Cammie?
No, I don't have any questions. Looks good to me.
Colby?
No, I don't have any questions. It's pretty well laid out, I think.
Yeah, I agree with council. It is well laid out. It is definitely timely to have it updated, and all the people that participated did a great job, Linda. We really appreciate good staff work on putting this together. I think we are very comfortable with providing you direction to prepare a resolution for adoption of this City of Mccall procurement policy at a future meeting.
Okay. That was pretty simple. I do want to point out though, the policy was sent out to department heads, and there was an error in section of the policy, section 6.12, fixed asset accounting. I had written out $1,000 as the threshold for maintaining an inventory of purchases made by the city. And in the numbers, it was 1,500. So I've corrected that to say $1,500. And I've also added that the minimum value required for items to be inventoried will be adjusted to the current year deductible in the city's liability policy with ICRAM. That way, in my opinion, it would help us to ensure that we are adding everything to our insurance list for insurance purposes to insure all of our items that are eligible. So that was a change that I made this week when it was pointed out to me that I had a little bit of a typo in there.
Thanks for explaining those edits. That makes a lot of sense.
And
So we'll
Mayor,
see
if
that.
I may add just one small thing before you finish your discussion. Linda and I also talked about doing some kind of regular report in maybe my department report, or somehow a list back to the council on a regular basis of the various things that we have approved under the new signature authority that's proposed here. So we're always transparent with the council about what's been signed. And then I also just wanted to remind you that even with this change, you would still see all checks on the warrant register that are being paid out, and you would still have the mayor signing all of that. So what this is doing is just streamlining more of the upfront procedural process to get the purchases underway, but all expenditures still come through you, and we will still ensure that you're informed of everything.
Thank you, Annette, for explaining that. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think any of us have any heartburn. It seemed like it's really thorough and modern, current thinking. It's nice that we reached out to the city of Lewiston. Is that correct, Linda?
Yeah, that is correct.
And they have they have the city manager, mayor form of government. So thanks for doing that. All right, unless Annette or Linda think otherwise, I was going to suggest we move on to our next item. That sound okay?
Yes.
Sounds good
Yes,
to me.
we will bring this back to you for a formal adoption at a future meeting then.
Yeah, thank you both. So our next item is a COVID-19 update. Chief Williams will present to us. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Justin Williams, Chief of Police, City of McCall. Rather than going through the numbers and specifically talking about the cases, we're all aware that cases are up in Valley County. We're continuing to see a surge in the area, as well as in the City of Council, where there is quite a surge of infection rate within that particular city. What I wanted to talk about tonight was the vaccination process. As I'm sure you're aware, the vaccination process for those Tier 1A workers, primarily healthcare workers, had started last month, end of December. And so now we have moved from that particular subset to the frontline essential workers, otherwise known as Group 2.1 in the state of Idaho's essential personnel, meaning the subsections, it goes from 2.1 down to 2.7. And there's been an iteration of this come out numerous times. Somebody's laughing.
That's me, sorry.
So there's been reiterations of this. There's been tooling, if you will, on who belongs in which particular category. But basically what they've come up with thus far is in this particular segment now is that frontline essential workers are those workers who are in sectors essential to the functioning of society and are at substantially higher risk for exposure to SARS-CoV-2 and the COVID-19, meaning first responders, firefighters, police, postal workers, teachers, things along those lines. And with that, it's been very difficult to be able to try to explain to people as to whether or not they are an essential worker or not. And the easiest way that I've been able to explain that is the purpose of the vaccine right now at this point in time is not only to try to prevent the disease from spreading, but it's to protect those people that by the nature of their job, they're forced to be in mandated contact with the public. For instance, a firefighter can't refuse to take an EMS call simply because they're going to be exposed to the public. That's part of their job, part of what it is that they do. Therefore, they're at higher risk for COVID-19 due to the fact that they're being forced to have interaction with the public. A police officer can't not respond to a domestic violence call because they don't want to have contact with the public. So we are forced into those particular situations in which we could be exposed. Teachers don't have the option of not reporting to class. They're forced to go into classrooms. They have to be able to teach these students. So these people are those that are at higher risk. While we all agree that it's very important to have wastewater, to have roads plowed, have sidewalks cleared, there's a difference between essential and emergent situations. And so these particular people will fall under segment 2.7. Those are the rest of the essential workers that what we'll see with the city of Mccall. That's where our streets department, public works, the sewer and water district, those individuals, they'll fall into it from there. So this week, just yesterday, I believe, St. Luke's announced that they're opening it up to the first responders, and there is a long list of individuals. If you go to their website, review their email of who's responsible or who can sign up for the vaccine at this point in time, such as firefighters, correctional workers, healthcare, health and welfare, teachers, daycare, those types of individuals. And so those are the people that are scheduled now. You go to my charts through St. Luke's. I've been working in conjunction with Laura Crawford and Amber Green with St. Luke's Healthcare System to stay in the know. And our process that we're looking at right now is that the officers that we have for Section 2.1, the police officers, they're signing up for those that choose to take the vaccination. It's recommended, but it is not mandatory through our process and our protocols at this time. When it goes to 2.7, I will then provide notification to the department heads that supervise employees in those particular groups, who will make contact with their direct employees and provide them a certification letter identifying them as an employee with the city of Mccall and what position they hold and how it constitutes an assignment to Section 2.7. The city of McCall is moving rapidly through this. Other areas are not to the 2.1 section yet, or not to the 1B if you look at the federal guidelines, but we are moving rapidly through it, and we anticipate that we're going to continue to do so with our low population and our efficiency that we're experiencing with St. Luke's. There's been communication issues in the beginning of this as St. Luke's received notification very late in the game that they were going to be responsible for administering the vaccine, but they've done a fantastic job. It was important for me to be able to speak with Laura Crawford and emphasize that we needed a central point of contact for information within the city, because not all of our employees have access to the internet. Not all of our employees have access to email, nor do they have access to social media. And so therefore, if they just put it out in those mediums, these people might not be able to react and address their situation. So she's agreed to send me the frontline communication so that I can forward that on to our staff as necessary. So that's the update that I have at this point in time, unless Annette has anything further on this or if council has questions.
Thank you,
Let's go to
Justin.
Annette first.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Justin. Hello, Mayor and Council. I just want to highlight a little bit of what was in my department report. As you know, every month I've been including updates in there as well regarding our coronavirus response here at the city. And this month, when I did the numbers, it really was shocking to me where we were at with the positive cases. So between March and the end of November, Valley County had tallied up just over 200 cases. When I looked at the number for Valley County at the end of December, we were up over 500. So in 1 month, we had more than 300 positive tests compared to 200 positive tests over like 8 months. So it's rapidly increasing here. There's very broad community spread, and we haven't seen any indication from the data from Central District Health or St. Luke's that it's slowing down at all. So I just want to remind everyone how incredibly important it is to be practicing those safe behaviors that are recommended, and how important it is that we have our mask requirement in place, and how important it is that the council passed their advisory last week. So we're definitely seeing a widespread increase in activity locally. In Mccall proper, the Central District Health is breaking out the number of positive cases by city now within Valley County, so you can see Mccall's numbers. And I believe the last time I looked, I want to say for the whole duration of the pandemic so far, Mccall residents account for around 350 of those 500 cases. So it is primarily here and not in the rural parts of the county. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that Central District Health's advisory, which you duplicated for the most part last week, says that it'll stay in place until there's a 2-week decline in cases and a 2-week case rate of less than 30 per 100,000 measurement. And when I looked at where we were at on December 27th, the 2-week case rate measurement for Valley County was at 60 per 100,000. So basically double the level that Central District Health will consider relaxing any of their advisory. So we're still in a tough spot, and everybody's thankful and hopeful with the vaccines now underway that will achieve herd immunity through the vaccine as soon as possible. But we are still in a dangerous spot. So please take care of yourself and others, and do what you can to help prevent the continued spread.
Thank you, Annette. Any questions for Annette or Chief Williams?
Okay.
Hearing none, we'll move on to upcoming meeting schedule.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So in your packet is the proposed upcoming meeting schedule. Your next meeting on January 28th has 2 work session topics that will be somewhat substantial items. The first one being a presentation by Idaho Department of Lands regarding the Payette land management strategy for the endowment lands in our area. We will have the plan document in your packet, but it is published already if you would like to go look in advance on the Idaho Department of Lands website to get familiar with that, if you haven't seen it yet already. So that's something you could do in advance, but it will be in the packet when it comes out late next week. And the purpose of that is to allow you time to discuss it and ask questions of Department of Land staff, and think about what types of comments you may want me to submit on your behalf by their February 12th public comment deadline. So that will be a major topic. And the other will be a work session again on the library expansion project. We're coming back to you with financial information about parks and library project. and a discussion about the election date. So that will also be a very important discussion. And then we have a number of other more routine items with grants and things like that. Friday the 29th is your retreat date, and thank you very much for getting back to Bessie Jo about your preferred time for that retreat. We'll be doing it between 9 a.m. and noon on that day, and we'll be sending you an advanced packet as well for that. And in order to keep it to 3 hours, what we'll be doing is sending you a set of questions ahead of time for you to brainstorm and think about, and hopefully send back to me. And that will be the reflection item on what went well and what didn't in the past year, so that we can save some time during the meeting. We won't do the brainstorming in the meeting unless folks have something new to add, but we will summarize your feedback from that reflection and present it to you at the beginning of the meeting as the jumping off point to talk about where you want to head in 2021. So be on the lookout for that. And other than that, we are adjusting to shifting around your schedule and doing our best to balance out the items for your meetings and make sure they're of reasonable length of time. Does anyone have questions or items that you didn't see on here that you want us to schedule for you?
I have one, and it'll probably just continue to be a thorn in your side, so I apologize in advance. But I still think that we need to look at the Public Works maintenance building in conjunction with the Parks Department. There's $500,000 schedule in a CIP each year for the next 5 years to go into the Public Works facility. I think $500,000 would probably get an extra bay or two in a maintenance building in a different location, and I think that we're missing a big opportunity if we continue on with the current location of the Public Works facility and missing an opportunity and combining that with the Parks facility, especially on the maintenance end of things. So something that I still think would be nice to discuss, but I'm sure I know what the answer is going to be from everyone.
Okay.
Well, that is a difficult one, Cole, because we have talked about that before as a council, and if we dissect that into two parts, the part about Parks and Rec moving over to the SIPA site, I'll call it the historical site, council has weighed in on that and is supportive of Annette finalizing and city staff figuring that out. So I'm not sure that this existing council is interested in, there's not a majority that's interested in the Riverside Park idea. That's the way I would characterize it. So I'm not sure that idea we want, that council's willing to make that assignment to Annette, because I don't think we're interested in that. Last time we polled council, that's what I heard.
Yeah, I understand. I just was reiterating that I think that it's we're making a big mistake.
Okay, is there anything else from anyone else for the upcoming meeting schedule or any questions about the retreat?
I don't think so, Annette.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to working with you at the retreat, and as always, just shoot me an email if you have questions about anything that I can help you with.
We will do that, and thanks. That's a great idea about sending us out an email ahead of time to get us to respond back. ahead of time so that we can summarize that. That will save us a lot of time, and it also allows us to put a lot of thought into it instead of just waiting till the last minute. That should work.
Okay, great.
Well, I believe our next item is a motion to adjourn. Would someone please make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mike.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Colby. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to adjourning, say nay. Our meeting, hearing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.